Minnesota, and hosted by Mr. Al Flowers. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of KMOJ staff, management, or board of directors. And now here's your host, Mr. Al Flowers.
Hey, what's up, community? Welcome to another episode of Community Value Conversation. I'm your host, Al Flowers, along with my other host and partner in this endeavor of continuing to trying to get information out to the community, Elisa Clemons, of a Mother's Love Initiative. And I want to say to the community, well, we got our great mayor on today, and we usually do our updates at the beginning of the show talking about what's going on. But we got the mayor here for about 45 minutes. And so we want to make sure that we get questions in that the mayor could respond to and answer about situations going on in the African-American community. This radio station is an African-American radio station, so I will focus our questions about our issues and what's concerning us. And first, let me say, finally, get you here as mayor. Welcome, Mayor Frey.
Well, Al and Lisa, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
And also, he got Jen White in, so he brought security. He didn't bring Kirk, but he brought his security. He brought Jen. I was just telling her about a post she had on Facebook talking about her family, her brother, and it just touched me. It touched me, the love that I seen in these pictures. You know, pictures speak a value of 1,000 words, and the pictures that she put on Facebook, I never met her brother, but it showed her love for her brother, and that's what I'm all about, showing love, and so I want to say that on the air because it was an emotional touch to me. You know, I lost a daughter to gun violence, and we lost a little brother when we were young, so the way those pictures did, you just made me feel more passionate about what you were doing and what you've always did, even in the 8th Ward when you was with us. So, right. But Mayor, so I want to get right into it, talking about issues. One of the things, you know, we talked about housing, and I'm watching what's going on in other cities. When you talk about Denver or Seattle or Portland, the medium to buy a house in the city now, the prices are skyrocketing. $750,000 in one area. I would have to look at my phone, but I know it's going up $400,000 in some communities in Portland or Seattle. And here in Minneapolis, it's already at $250,000. That's what that's where the houses are going, and it's ticking upward. And my question is, how do we stop that tide if we don't move people, particularly people of color, particularly African Americans, out the city of Minneapolis? How do you stop that?
Well, Al, you're exactly right. You know, we do have an affordable housing crisis right now in Minneapolis, and it's not something that's unique to our city, as you pointed out. What's happening is a whole lot of people are moving back to cities right now. People want to live in Minneapolis. I mean, that's something that we should be proud of, but the issue is that when a whole lot of people want to live in Minneapolis and we don't have the affordable housing to accommodate it, what happens is that the prices just keep getting jacked up. The values rise, the rents go through the roof, and people are getting displaced from the communities that they have, by the way, made wonderful to begin with. Right. That's the case on the north side. That's the case in Northeast. That's the case in South. And I think we have a role as government to do something about it. And so, you know, what we're starting out by doing is in this budget, we will be investing a record amount in affordable housing. Not just a record amount. We're going to be investing about 3 or 4 times the previous record. Because I believe we got to be putting our money where our mouth is, and where our money and our mouth should be is making sure that people have the ability to stay in these neighborhoods that they've made wonderful to begin with.
Okay, let me
ask a quick question
please.
On that. What is affordable housing to you? I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, it is. And so I'll give you both the legal definition as well as the definition that a lot of people will go off of. So what we do is we take the area median income as a measure. Not that doesn't mean it's affordable. You take the median income in the metro-wide area and you take a certain percentage of that.
Okay.
So let's say the legal definition in our city is at 6. It's housing that is affordable to people making 60% of the area median income and under. Now here's the problem with that. The problem is that 60% of area median income is still not affordable for a whole lot of people. So what we need is that deeply affordable housing. We even need housing for people who have been experiencing homelessness to pull themselves out. And right now, we don't have that housing.
Right.
So that 30% of area median income, that housing, so the people who are working, who are homeless, who are just struggling to get by, they can live in our city and they can succeed.
Okay.
And my follow up with over North Minneapolis is probably the last place where if you're going to make sure that the diversity stays in Minneapolis and stays in the community. I was a part of doing a housing survey with organizations in the community, the Urban League, Summit Academy, Emerge, Urban Homework, City of Lake Community Land Trust, and the University of Minnesota in Cura. Talking about what can we do better to stay here. Well, we know over half the stock over in Minneapolis is owned by investors or landlords.
That's right.
Over 50% is owned by investors. What's to not make this even explode? Because the investors don't have an interest in what's happening in Minneapolis. It's a money thing.
That's right. Well, I think when we make investments and we make policy shifts, we shouldn't be thinking about a house or a pothole or a street or a bridge. We got to be thinking about people. And yes, you're right. There are investors that are coming in from other cities, other states, other parts of the country that are buying stuff up. And what I want to make sure happens is the people within the community are reaping the benefits of the investments that we make. We want to make sure that ownership opportunities are available to people of color, to people on the north side. And a big part of our affordable housing initiative that we're pushing for, which, as I said, is going to be a record amount of funding, will be to make sure that we got these properties on the north side. In fact, the city owns like 370 some odd vacant properties on the north side alone. And we can make sure to sell those properties off for very low dollar figures to people within the community. We can help with things like down payment assistance because, by the way, that's one of the biggest hurdles.
That's the biggest hurdle.
People might be able to pay like the monthly amount for a mortgage, but they can't drop $40,000 in one fell swoop. They can't do that. That's not fair. Who's got $40,000 just sitting around? Like not too many of us, right? Right? Well,
no,
at least Lisa over there is raising her hands. All
I'm
right?
just kidding.
Lisa's taking me out for drinks then after this is over. So I think people need that ability to first get through that down payment, and then we can get them in a home. And again, we're going to be putting our money where our mouth is on this piece, and we're talking about housing.
So one of the biggest problems, Mayor Frey, is that leadership and picking leadership in the African American community. And I want to get it out on the radio. I want to say this publicly. We got organizations that comes in and say they represent African American people, and I get to say it. You have to work with everybody, but I get to say organizations like Isaiah, Take Action, Knock, Neighborhood Organizing for Change, who was in our community for 10 years. And then we don't save it, and then they leave our community. But they were the ones that the politicians, the political people listened to, and I have a problem with that. I've explained that they don't represent us, and I'm a person that believes in the black churches as our leadership in the African American community, and I speak with them on a daily basis about what our situation is in our community, and I'm wondering how you, and with the Urban League. The Urban League had programming back. The last time the Urban League had major programming in our community, it was when former Mayor Sharon Sales Belton was the mayor of Minneapolis, and the Urban League was uplifted and doing things. And after Sharon Sales Belton left, we lost a lot. And our community still blames our organization, saying, you guys are not doing anything. But we don't have the political support, and that's why I'm saying to you, these organizations have. If you look at Isaiah, they were talking about things that most in the African American community don't agree with in school, saying about kids being suspended, but they get to advocate for that. I'm not a speaker of the African American community. I advocate for our community, and I'm saying, how can the city, how can you as our mayor, Mayor Frey, connect our community back into the political world when the churches don't get involved? And if you see some of the incidents going on, the churches, our church, the black community is not there. Whether it's Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter is led by, it's mostly white people coming, and you'll have a sprinkling of our community. I'm trying to get us back in the on the playing field in our community, but we need political support. You know these things are happening. How do we do that to get the African American, not individuals like myself, not like Lisa, not like some other individuals, because social media is playing a major role in how you have to do politics. What do we do to make sure our community is expressed? Because the last part of it, Isaiah and other organizations are now, it's a big problem in the immigrant community, and they've shifted. We're left over there. They shifted to immigrant community. Knock is gone, and we're still out there and the city trying to find our leadership. So what do we do?
Well, Al, as usual, you've always spoken truth to power, and once again, you're right. You're speaking the truth. I don't pretend to be a person of color. I don't pretend to be from the North Side. I don't pretend to fully understand all of the issues that are taking place here. But I do talk to people who are here, not just here. When the TV cameras are out, I talk to people who are here all the time. And yes, you're right. Al, Lisa, you're around. Urban League's around. We have black churches that are consistently around. And so those are a lot of the people I'm talking to. And as you mentioned, interestingly, the things that I'm hearing from black churches up here on the North Side, the things that I hear from both of you are not the same as the things that I hear from a lot of these white progressive organizations. Now, that's not to say that they aren't benevolent. It's not to say that they aren't doing good work, but I want to listen to people of color on the North Side first. Right. That's who I want to listen to first. Right. And, yeah, Urban League, black churches. Another good one that I want to talk about is Village Trust, financial cooperative. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the group, but it's the very first black-owned, or I guess the only black-owned bank. Yes. Black-owned financial institution in the state of Minnesota. And if we're going to talk about getting money, capital, in the hands of black people on the North Side, they need to actually hold the capital to begin with. We need a black person, a black entity that is making the decisions as to where the money goes. Right. We can mess around with all this other stuff, but until we're talking about money, where is the money going? I don't think that we're going to see all of the changes that we talk about wanting to see. And so I'm going to be investing in Village Trust Financial Cooperative in the city's budget. I encourage everybody else to do so as well.
Can I follow in on this? Go back a second to the housing piece. So the city council, including you, pushed for the $15 an hour minimum wage. That doesn't really take effect until, am I right, 2020? So by then we understand that housing costs will be even more out of reach for the people. So why wasn't there a housing plan? And Al talked about it a lot, as you know, during the mayor's election. But why wasn't there a housing plan or even some commitment that people with zip codes in North Minneapolis or Minneapolis as a whole will have the first consideration for jobs that are $15 an hour? Because a lot of people influx in from the suburbs and work downtown, which you know, because you were the council person down there. So why wasn't there some plan in place before you did the $15 an hour push for housing? Why wasn't there something included in that?
So the $15 an hour push, it doesn't start in 2020. It's gradual. So in fact, it's already started.
So it's going up a little at a time.
It goes up a little bit at a time. It's gradual. It goes up faster for big corporations than it does for small businesses. Mm-hmm. But it's going up for everyone. And so while, I didn't control all of the strings of the budget when I was a council member, what I can say, at least with respect to housing, is we are investing heavily. We do have a plan. We have both a monetary plan as to where investments are going to be made. We have a zoning plan as to how zoning is going to take place. And here's another thing that I wanted to mention, because you talked about kind of jobs downtown, jobs on the North Side. We need jobs on the North Side.
Absolutely.
But one of the narratives that I don't like is just assuming that a black person on the north side is only good enough to do some industrial job that's on the north side. You know, we need those jobs. Yes, we do. But I want to see black people on the north side downtown as CEOs. I want to see black people on the north side in different areas of the city and state as entrepreneurs. And a big piece of that is making sure that everyone has access to the capital, has opportunity to run with a great idea, to live a brilliant life. And we need to knock down a lot of these barriers that I think have been in place for generations. So yes, we need jobs on the north side. Yes, we need to be looking at these sort of mid-range $15, $20, $25 an hour jobs, But I don't want to. But let's face it, $15 an hour is fine. It's good. I'm glad we passed the minimum wage, but $15 an hour is still not a life.
That's right. That's right. I'm glad you say that.
And Mayor, you've had a conversation with some of our black church. I think about Pastor McAfee, who's rehabbing houses now in the city, and our black churches are willing to put their collateral together. Just to say we want to make a difference in this. How can the city work with that group? Just like Urban Homework. Urban Homework didn't start off. They started off with 3 or 4 houses. And then they grew and they exploded, and they serve in our community. So you've been around long enough to know that's what's happening. How do we get into the African American developer being a part of the city structure that before you leave office, that you leave here with something, bringing that African American developer? We tried before with Roxanne Gibbons, if you remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. Whether it's Reverend McAfee, it's Bishop Howell, there are a whole lot of these churches here on the north side and the south side, for that matter. I don't want to forget about the south side.
Pastor Russell.
That's right. Pastor Russell as well. They've got access to a ton of human capital.
Yes.
And that human capital can be in the form of community-minded developers. So as we talk about developing out some of these parcels that are previously presently underutilized, it is that human capital, I think, that can ultimately help make a difference. So I think there's a lot of room for partnership with these entities, a lot of room for partnership with these churches and community members.
Well, I thank you, and wanted to hear that as we continue to struggle to make change, because we don't want to get into like I said earlier, about the immigrant community that's having so many struggles with this president, what we got right now, that's doing things that none of us like. But I don't want us to get lost, as usual, in the shuffle. And I'm asking you as the mayor to really, our leadership is the black church, no matter what anybody else say. We meet with, you have to have a collaboration. And when you talk about like the Minneapolis Urban League, I'm trying to say it to political leaders so that you can have a landing place to say, because at the end, if you tell me to do something and tell other individuals to do our work, and then at the end, when it's not done, the Urban League is going to get blamed. The black churches are going to get blamed like they're not doing anything, but it's really politics that's separating us. And I think you can make a dent in that if you because we will bring it and support this initiative coming from the black church. I can say that. Mm-hmm. I can sit on the radio and say the black churches, the organizations, we all meet together, but we still got individuals against on social media and play like they are leaders, and then they'll move to St. Paul. Jason Soul, NAACP president, and then you move to St. Paul. You leave us here. Leave us here. So that's why I'm saying
churches never leave.
The churches never leave, and the organization, the Urban League, never leaves. So I wanted to get that, and because after this show, I want us to develop that relationship with our black churches and our organizations to uplift us and get ready to move on. Right. So, any more questions on housing?
No, we have to move on because we only have them for 20 more minutes.
No, but I just want to solidify. This is something that's crucial to our community about housing. And now we go on another issue crucial in our community, in the African American community, is the violence and dealing with violence in our community. And this is another reason. The same I said there, I won't repeat. The same I said there. We got leadership that can help this city if the city let us in. And the reason I say that is the political. It's political. We got two issues here. We got, and you know this. We got the last one was the shooting of Thurman Blevins, which was a big issue, and then we got our issues of so much violence that's happening in the community. We tend to, from this show here, want to deal with both of them. How do we deal with both of them? We've been working with Deputy Chief Art Knight. Jen has been at the first meeting. She was at the first meeting. And how do we get on the political side? How do we tighten both of these up? And Lisa, you want to? Is it a question you want to ask about? Because there's a lot going on with the city council now, really trying to vote to revoke your power as the see who's over the police chief, which I think that's going to be a disaster. You want to speak on that?
Well, first I need to ask him how you feel about your current chief. If you had to describe this chief, how do you feel about this chief?
Well, let me tell you about how I feel about the current Chief Arredondo. I put my wife first in my life, and Chief Arredondo is slightly behind her. Chief Arredondo is a spectacular person. I think he's an excellent leader, and he's someone who I see partnering with for the long haul. He cares deeply about the community. He cares deeply about safety, and he fully intends to reform how the police are interacting right now with our communities. And so I'm 100% behind him.
Okay. Go ahead.
And Mayor, just on the case of Blevin, a lot of information getting out there. Can you just update the community on where they is? I knew the BCA, and let me say this about the BCA and what they. We asked for that as a community. It wasn't me, but our leadership asked for the BCA, asked to get rid of the grand jury. And then I don't want to, and I'm not going to revise history and say that didn't happen. Then we get it. That's where we at today. Where are we at in the Blevins case? What can you tell us where we at with that case?
Without compromising the case.
Well. First, what I will say is, regardless of the circumstances or the facts, let's be real. A black man was shot by our police on the north side, and that in and of itself is a tragedy. Now, regularly, what happens is that as soon as the incident takes place, then we ship the information off to the BCA. The BCA undergoes an investigation, takes 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, months, and then it goes to the DA or the Hennepin County Attorney for a decision on whether or not to charge. And we've changed that process to a certain extent. What we've said was that as soon as we know that some of the key witness interviews are completed, we want to be able to release the tapes. We want to be as transparent as possible with the community, regardless of the facts, and we want to be honest. We also want to make sure that the family, and we got to be thinking about the family here, that the family is consulted, and we've been consulting with them and talking with them, and this is obviously very heavy for them and the entire north side and the whole city right now. And so that needed to happen first. But yeah, we will be releasing the tapes. I'm confident we'll be able to do so by the end of July. So we're looking at, I don't know, what is that, another week and a half or so at most. So that's the direction we're moving right now.
I just want to say this to people who have not been police officers or investigators. When you say, and I think people misunderstand what you're saying because it was a short answer and not a long answer. When you interview witnesses, you don't interview some of those witnesses just one time. Sometimes the process is longer because you may have to call a witness back in because something they said does not go along with something two other people said. It doesn't match what the video shows. So interviewing witnesses is not what you believe interviewing witnesses is. Sometimes you interview them 2 or 3 times to find out what part of their statement is true. And then there's also people who give statements who weren't really there. And you find that out as you're going through the process of interviews. So I want to say this not to defend you, but to say when you say release it after everybody's been interviewed, the public has to have an understanding that that doesn't mean they might get interviewed one time and it's done. It's a longer process than that.
No, that's exactly right.
And was she the police? That's why she was exactly.
No, I'm
right.
just saying I was an investigator, so
no,
I know what it really entails.
It's
not like TV.
No,
Don't start out.
Yeah.
We have company.
Jacob like, oh, he turned his head like, no. But she is. Everybody know that. It ain't no, you can see on Facebook. She's a supporter of right, and and we might have disagreements on some of the issues. I mean, we don't. Our politics don't match. She's a straight law enforcement. She's about a book, and she did a great job with her kids. So that lets you know that she knows what she's talking about. But I'm one that how do we fix this situation? And Mayor Frey, I think that what I said earlier about coming together, really recognizing that we got our churches and our organization that's out there, and I'm trying to get them, and then we can let the activists argue, but let us have a foundation in the African American community. Let us have a foundation. We haven't had that since Mayor Sharon Sells Belton. I'm asking now, and that's what I ran about. I knew what the odds were, but I was running to say we got these problems, the violence in our community. Some don't want to call it what it is, but this is an issue that if we're going to change things around, it's going to be housing, and it's going to be us being accountable to the city being accountable to listening to us. Because if you don't listen, how can we get this done?
That's right.
And so that's why I go ahead.
I just want to ask, we always talk about, every time we bring you guys on the shows, we talk about police-involved stuff. But I'm just trying to figure out, when will we see the importance in dealing with the violence by guns in the community as a whole? Because I know you guys get daily reports from the police department on all these shootings and all these homicides in our community. But I don't ever hear the outrage from elected officials when we are dying every day or being shot every day. And I'm just trying to find out when there is time that we can talk about that without people believing it's a distraction to talk about that. As a black mother, I don't want to just talk about police-involved shootings. I want to talk about us dying every day by anybody's hands.
Well, Lisa, I think you're exactly right. It is not a distraction to talk about shootings that are happening in our communities. It's the truth. And it needs to be discussed because when you talk about kind of that foundation from which people can rise, that the underlying foundation is always a safe home and a safe community.
Right.
And we need both. And the north side deserves that. The south side deserves that. So we need to be talking about it. And we also need to be making sure we're pushing programs forward that are working. One of the things we're working on is group violence intervention, making sure that we're providing both the social and political and capital infrastructure for some of these young men to move out of some of these violent circles that they've been in. We're talking about next step. We're talking about a public health approach to violence. All these things need not just to be looked at, but invested in. And I also know about some of the great work that both you, Al, and Lisa are doing with A Mother's Love. That's the kind of street outreach that we need on a daily basis to make sure that we're interrupting some of these cycles of violence.
Right. Well, downtown definitely needs it, but can I just jump back to GVI?
Please.
First of all, I'm opposed to calling it group violence initiative because it's a gang violence initiative, but if it makes you feel comfortable to call it something politically correct. But you need to expand that. It is. It's a small group trying to deal with a large problem. But you need to expand on that. Invest some money into that. It just goes into what Al was talking about with the churches. If you got these boots on the ground organizations, you need to invest some money in that. If the city, the state, the federal government, I hate those everybody want to tell you what their responsibility is. Those lines need to be blurred. Yep. But if you're going to invest some money into organizations, there has to be some emergency resources available. There has to be some 24-hour services. We work in downtown right now, and there's nobody you can call to get that help right now. And if people make it through the night, they're good.
Right.
So there's no emergency services. Look at Al over there looking. I don't care. We need to deal with the gun violence in the community, the homelessness, and we need to not keep talking about it. And the city council need to come out on all these shootings that's happening in our community and not just try to come when it's a police-involved shooting. We need to see your face. Everybody's child is important in our community.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that because she's taking your time. I had so I'm
with his long questions.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do. You know? but I really want when we leave. My theory, Jacob, was to let our community know and let you know that we have leadership. That we have leadership, and we're the only community that our leadership is picked. You know, you don't pick and say who's the leader in the white community, who's the leader in the Latino community, who's the leader in the Somali community, who's the leader in the Hmong community. Yep. Only community that is picked is ours. So we got to change charters and do something. We need to do. I mean, what I really want us to come to power before I get through doing my work. I want us to come to power, but I want to leave with knowing that we got a solid urban league. We got a respect for our church because Isaiah is a Christian. It's a church organization, but they say they represent. This is what they've been doing, and I need you to help us shift that and change that because if you shift it, then the county's gonna shift. It's all on what you do. Then the county's gonna shift, and the state gonna shift. Because you know when you're in politics, everything's gonna shift, but you need that backup to say I believe in you, and I'm trying to get you to say believe in the African American community, and we will bring the leadership to support what I'm saying right now. All over the city of Minneapolis, from South Side to North Side, you don't see our leaders out there when when all the calamity. You see individuals, Jacob. I'm some mayor pride, you know, but
Jacob's fine.
Yeah, but you know, and so I'm trying to develop a relationship right here on our people station on KMOJ with our community and bringing us together, and then you'll see who's not doing the right thing.
And that's I'm trying to get us to have one boss for our chief of police, and not have 14 people. It's going to get messy in this city. We have enough issues that the city council need to deal with than trying to pass a charter amendment for all of you who don't even agree on the weather outside to be the boss of the chief. And then for you to choose this chief as the time for you to do that, I find that insulting.
Why are you talking about equity? You know,
right?
Lisa
exactly.
and Al, you know, I agree with you. Obviously, there was a proposal that was put forward to change our charter so that our chief Arredondo has to report to not just me but 13 other people.
Insanity.
And I'll tell you what, nobody talked to Chief Arredondo about this. The chief is adamantly opposed. Right. We've got our first black chief right now. We need to be supporting our first black chief. And no, the truth is that nobody talked to him. Nobody talked to me before it was introduced at that first committee of the whole meeting. And no, I think it's wrong. And here's the other thing. When something goes wrong, when shootings take place, whether it's just shootings in the community or it's police officer involved shootings, people blame the chief and they blame me.
Right.
And that's a tough position to be in. It's hard sometimes, but at least somebody is accountable.
Right.
The chief is accountable and I am accountable. If suddenly you're answering to 14 different people, it's just one big finger pointing contest. Everybody's blaming each other. Who's accountable at the end? Where does the buck stop? I don't even know. I don't know. Not to mention, you're going to have like a ward by ward policing strategy where you're going to have one policing strategy, I don't know, on one side of Lake Street or on one side of Broadway than you would on the other. It's a bad idea.
Right.
It's just a flat out bad idea. And don't get me wrong, politically, and Al, Lisa, you probably know this, politically, this would be one of the best things in the world for me. I mean, this is one of the most difficult parts of my job is dealing with safety, dealing with the police, dealing with accountability, and that whole job would largely be taken off my plate, or at least spread between 14 different people. I'd work on economic development. I'd work on affordable housing. I'd, kiss babies and drink Cavassier every night. I'd have a great time. I'm half joking, of course, but but the reality is that somebody needs to be accountable.
And it can't be 14 people.
And it can't. We need the opportunity to work collaboratively with the council and the chief on policy, on moving public safety. We can work collaboratively, but I don't think this is just not the answer.
And I just think it's part of the anarchy movement. They can play this game how they want to, and it's very dangerous where we at right now. It's part of the what they are doing, and I thank Andrea Jenkins for standing ground and saying, "No, come on, let's talk about something before we initiate it." And so I'm gonna give Philippe and Jeremiah time to sit on the council for a minute and don't have to follow the lead and just speak see what the community wants before they speak on those kind of issues. That's a big deal.
But I know he has to go, but I need to touch on the ketamine investigation, because we did have a retired judge on here last weekend. That was one of the things that she thought we should touch on, and I think so too. And I'll say my quick piece. I don't understand why Minneapolis police is under attack, but paramedics aren't, because they have their own oath. And for them to have somebody tell them to do that, and they do it, I'm trying to understand why all the blame is shifted to Minneapolis police, but we're not hearing anything about paramedics. Why did you choose Sally for that investigation, and where do you see it going?
So first, to answer your question, we chose Sally Yates to investigate this because this was a neutral third party that was not in the state, that would not be influenced by me, wouldn't be influenced by council members, wouldn't be influenced by city staff, county, city, you name it. I want them to just run an investigation so we can get to the bottom of what happened. So, Mr. Flowers over here talks about speaking truth to power. We want the truth here.
There you go.
And and you're right about the second piece too, is that look, our police officers should not be giving health-related advice or input to the health professionals, and the health professionals shouldn't be listening to our police officers on that topic. That's the first truth. And we immediately issued a directive to the police department. By the way, that same directive would have taken a month and a half if it were the council that was making the same decision. We immediately issued a directive to say that. We want to get to exactly the bottom as to what's happening. But we're going to make sure we do.
The fault lies with both, but the paramedics are ultimately responsible for what they do with their patients.
And then because I know we're running out of time, and I want the last question I want to talk about is trauma in our community. You got a big thing going. Joy Marsh Stevens, she was at our last meeting and at the Urban Lakes, and it's a push when we're talking about trauma, Mayor. How one of the things this again, who sees the people in most trauma? Our churches, our organizations, our schools.
That's right.
So when we've been having our meetings, we've been talking about it all. This group we have, working with at the Urban League with President Belton, it's about talking about everything, not talking about the crisis that happened in with Thurman Blevins being killed, and other individuals that's dying in our community. And trauma is a big part. And one of the things I want to say to you, these kids go to school with it every day.
That's right.
They go to school with it every day. So I want you to really look at this group as we build it, and build it from a community standpoint, with the churches, with the organization, with community leaders. But with the churches and the Urban League and the Sabathani, don't let me forget Sabathani Community Center, Cindy Booker over there, the executive director that's fighting hard every day to put people to work. But we need that partnership with the city and our leaders. I can step back. I follow leadership. And a trauma what our kids are going through that can go to school every day, They're hearing the gunshots. You see the shot spotter.
Yeah.
They're hearing it, and then it's like they don't what we do for them, and they trying to get educated. So we got so many problems. I didn't bring education to you because the housing and the public safety, I think you can help us with. The education, our community have to go and make the school, but we could tell you what's going on, and you use the bully pulpit.
That's right. And Al, you're right about many things, but one thing especially, which is just the trauma and the generational trauma that our communities are facing right now. And that's not the kind of thing that is just solved overnight. You know, I wish there was a policy that I could enact tomorrow that would ensure that, you know, these kind of shootings would never happen again. Right. The truth is, the honest truth is that I can't. But what we can do right now is do a whole lot of listening. We can be honest with ourselves, and we also, I mean, there's different organizations out there. You know, one of them is Recast. We've got dollars, I believe, in Recast right now, and voting is open for some of the proposals on the funding in which the community will kind of decide. You just go to the city website. You can check it out there. And this would help a community that, yes, has experienced quite a bit of trauma to help determine their own path forward. Right. And I think that's a big part of the puzzle.
And with leadership I said this before, I just want you to recognize Minneapolis leadership, St. Paul leadership. They got their own agenda in St. Paul. We have to have ours over here in Minneapolis, and people speaking up, coming across the river. I say this to them. So, and you know, I said it. You know, we was out at one of the shootings, and I said this. People coming from other areas dictating our politics, and I hope that what I'm saying today, that you will reverse and say, let me listen to our people of Minneapolis. And that's our leadership in Minneapolis.
That's right.
And they waving a finger. They trying to get you out of here. You could have did 15 more, though. Hey, any last word, Mayor?
No, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you, Lisa and Al, for your work in the community, for having me on, and this won't be the last conversation.
Okay.
Right.
We appreciate it, and thank you so much, Mayor. And we're going to be looking out for us. We're going to be coming to say this is what we're doing, and we're going to be organized with it. African Americans.
I would expect nothing less from you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for your time.
So community, that was our Mayor, Jacob Frey. Next time we'll ask you, try to get him in, and maybe he'll take some phone calls. But this time I wanted to get these issues out, talking to our mayor about the issues, and we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Good thing. Good. No.
Thank you.
Yeah. No.
Neither is half as hard as dying. If this radio spot were Nikki Baker's life, it would start pretty normal, like this.
And about this far in, Nikki would drop out of high school.
Here, she'd be forced to work 2 jobs, but then she'd decide to earn her GED diploma.
It would be the beginning of a brighter future. For free info about GED test prep classes, call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org and begin your brighter future.
GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Drop School Day students community, high 7 the classroom, 1,000 America attendance. Quit Variety Day of reasons, job like to get, baby raise-a, relative help an elderly. Happening local on, it's a level. Catastrophe, it's a national.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day. It doesn't make sense to us either. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Thank you for tuning
in. Back in at you, and we finna talk about. We're gonna do our update, but we got a guest before we do that, you had some you want to say, Lisa?
No, just while we're getting them in the room, I just want to send a shout out to Joy March Stevens for all the work that she's doing on trauma.
Yeah, well, she need to do more.
You better leave my girl
she
alone.
need to do more. No, they quit putting out them little $1,000 proposals and then thinking we're gonna get something done. So I'm not gonna.
She got more than that going out. She got more than that.
So yeah. Yes. Hey, but so we got I guess we got information. We talking about our black Minnesota queen, Miss Black USA, and we're going to talk about. They want to talk about what they got coming up. And I'm gonna turn it over to you. Miss Julian Jackson, let you start. What's going on?
Greetings and salutations, community. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Flowers, for having us on. And I am here today for us to talk about one of our very own village child, born and bred on the north side, Tonda Seasway Jackson Nissen, and many opportunities to make us proud. The last of which is she is our current Miss Black Minnesota USA.
All right, and you, what you gonna say to the community? We got to support her. Well, I always support her, and
yes, you do. Thank you.
And so tell the community what's going on, where you at right now, and what we need to be doing.
Happy Sunday, happy to be here. Thank you for having me on, Al. I am 17 days away from the National Miss Black USA pageant, and I'm, just getting ready for it. It's just like, the Super Bowl for us. It's a sport. So oftentimes people ask, well, why pageantry? What does this mean? How does this help to develop you? So just like some parents put their children into karate or into soccer or basketball, pageantry is a sport for us where it helps us develop those critical and key skills that have helped me along the way. Also, it's one of the largest pots of money for women worldwide, universally. So that's something that we also take pride in, the scholarship money. But yeah, like my mom said, I'm a North Sider, so I'm here today to let you all know a little bit about my platform, which is I Am Not My Hair. One size does not fit all, which just speaks to empowerment. It talks about, I think that where we are right now, a lot of young people are struggling with self-esteem and self-confidence. And I think that trickles down to so many other aspects of life, whether that's careers or schooling, relationships, how our young people are, social media can be a great tool, but I think that it can also be a downfall with that piece. And, I wear short hair, I rock short hair, and that's my preference. But the idea of my platform is that however you come, however you show up, you are supposed to be that person unapologetically, whether you're rocking something like Michelle Obama or you have an afro like Angela Davis in the 70s, or you're rocking your hair like me or NDIRE. You are supposed to feel comfortable in your own skin. And I guess for me, it's an honor to be Miss Black Minnesota, hopefully soon to be Miss Black USA, because I have been told that I was not good enough. I have been told that my skin has been too dark. I have been told that I was too thick. And in the Miss USA or traditional pageants, the winners and the contestants usually are a size 2. They usually have blonde hair and blue eyes. And this Miss Black USA gives me an opportunity to be unapologetically black.
And we just had the mayor on, and at the last part I was talking about trauma, and you long time North Side, lifelong North Sider. How do you and you seeing the situation what some of our young kids are going through now? How do we keep? I mean, you had to fight through all this and to stay here. Tell the community a little bit about why we should persevere. We're gonna persevere. How do we win this and let our young women, our young girls know? Because a lot of young girls, it's a lot happening. The fighting when they was downtown the other day, they said it was the girls were fighting and the guys was trying to videotape them while they fighting. What you tell to our young girls, our young sisters and our young ladies and babies, and what you say to them?
Well, I do think that the healing is important. We do have to heal. I do believe in historical trauma, and I think that it is inevitable that people that do not have brown skin like us tell us that we just need to get over things. Oh, slavery was, back in the 1800s, just get over it. But we have to understand that we are being enslaved in multiple different ways. When I think about my platform and young women and image issues and empowerment issues, the fact that a young woman would say, hey, instead of paying my rent, I'm going to buy 3 bundles so I can have my, my virgin, Brazilian weave in, that's another form of enslavement. And it all comes together. It's this big circle of issues. And I think first we need to talk about healing. And with our young men, I think that the healing piece, they say, oh, well, I'm a man, I'm supposed to take care of the family, or I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. But healing is for everybody. No matter if you are 10 years old, you have some things things have already happened to you if you're brown in this country. And even if you're not brown, if you're poor in this country, you're 10 years old, guaranteed something traumatic has happened that you need to heal from. Or if you're 70, you done marched with King, you done seen Malcolm X or Fred Hampton. There's definitely some things that you need to heal from as well. And when I look at people like Nina Simone, brilliant. Nina Simone was brilliant. But when you don't talk about those traumatic experiences and you don't create a plan to heal, even just to talk to somebody, because it's a taboo in our community, then that healing never happens. And I think that you can be a self-detriment to yourself. So I think the first step to answer your question, Mr. Flowers, is that we need to work on healing, especially with our young people.
How do we support? What do we have to do from a community standpoint? What can we do, and where's your website and all that stuff, so we can get involved to make sure we pushing, because social media is a big deal now. That's what I'm just arguing about. Hey, don't use social media on our political stuff. I'm saying don't use. You don't let individual use that to say they're carrying out political agenda.
Yes.
But it's good when we trying to get information out. But the information got to be correct.
For sure.
So what can we do? Give us the information to get involved here.
For sure. So, again, I'll be leaving for Washington, D.C. 2 weeks from Tuesday, and the final competition happens on Sunday, August 12th. So, game time for us. I'll start with social media, but I also do agree with Mr. Flowers that you can't just use that and say, well, that's the only thing that I'm doing. You have to mobilize as well. So I'm on Instagram as Artist by Nature. That's BYY, Artist by Nature. You can search me on Facebook as Miss Black Minnesota USA. And then our email address, which is a great way to get a hold of us if you have any questions, if you have an event that you want me to come to in the next 2 weeks, if you have any way that you can help or volunteer for the cause, which is Miss Black Minnesota spelled out 18. Miss Black Minnesota spelled out 18 at gmail.com. And I'll also go ahead and give my number because, I know some people are like, well, that's my cell phone. But I'm a North Sider. I love community. I love connecting with people. My cell phone number is 612-741-5664. Again, that's 612-741-5664. And I'm a poet. I'm a speaker. I'm an educator. I cook too. I can put my foot in something. And again, I love the community. So whatever you have going on, I would like to know about it.
Can you say that phone number one more time?
It's 612-741-5664, 612-741-5664. And thank you for having us on.
No, but I ain't going to let you get out of here.
Okay, you said not that fast, though.
Yeah. No, I still got a couple of minutes left. And I ain't going to let you get away without saying what this lady over here who just runs everywhere, running all around, sitting next to you.
I thought you were going to say she runs everything, like she does run me, too.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. This talk about what this is your mom. Talk about what your mom meant to you to get you right here.
My mother, Julian Jackson, is everything. I think about I'm every woman. She's a Renaissance woman, and I definitely wouldn't be sitting here, and I know that sounds cliche, but wouldn't be here without her. She has poured so much into me, but also while pouring into me, her actual child has poured into the community. And it's interesting just when you think about the returns on some of those favors. I feel like we should be sitting somewhere in Malibu, or, if we stayed in Minnesota, maybe we'd be on Lake Lake Calhoun, driving a Cadillac, for all the work that she's put in. She's genuine. She's passionate. She really cares. And, I think that sometimes, she loves the community so much it consumes her. And sometimes we have to talk about that. Like, okay, self-care, Mom, self-care. But I believe in karma. I believe in the universe paying you back for what you put out. But she is the perfect, course with one of your favorite songs. She is everything. She's amazing, and she's a phenomenal woman, and I appreciate her.
Wow! You can't beat that.
Come on,
you can't beat that. And I know she's speaking the truth about her mom, who's been an activist. Go ahead, Julie.
I just wanted to also say again and thank you publicly. If there were more folks out there like you in terms of not only supporting this child but supporting our young people, anytime we see you. As you see us coming up, you're already reaching in your pocket to give Tondi Sizwe something towards her latest endeavor. And I cannot say thank you enough.
Hey, thank you, Julene. And, hey, it's time. Don't tell them to cut it off yet, Chaz. Chaz coming in. Yeah, he shook him last week. He had him shook up. He'd cut the mic off. Let me say it's almost time for Jazz with Chaz. But before I say that, let me tell the community, our black